somehow they figured out that the maple sap had sugar in it. Not sure exactly how they figured that out, but they would fill up. Gotta get some hot ones. They would fill up these troughs with the sap. Okay, and this is like 99.9% water, even though it's coming. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, you're right.
Coming straight from that bucket. That's what I filled it from, was that bucket right there. And by the process of moving hot rocks back and forth from the trough to the fire to the trough, they could actually keep these troughs boiling just by moving hot rocks back and forth. They would boil it down and they would fill it back up, boil it down, fill it back up, boil it down until they had sort of maple sugar.
Sort of.
Now, basically, is that hot? That's not hot yet. I don't know if I can grab any. There's not enough down at the bottom.
On the side.
Yeah. Well, basically, once it boiled down, where's that? I dumped it out earlier. There's some down here. There's some right there. The whole bottom of it, well, not the straw. There's a good piece. The whole bottom of it would be filled with that right there, which is basically sweet sand. Okay, sand with just a little bit of sugar in it. But they would still sprinkle this on everything. And it was the only thing sweet that they had in their diets. Honeybees didn't make it across the Atlantic until about the middle 1600s. So this was the only thing the natives had sweet in their diets. And once they had it, they used it on everything. The drawback to that, can anybody see a drawback to eating sandy, gritty food?
Wear your teeth down.
Wear your teeth down. Not just the molars. There's a good one. If you get into some of that steam, it smells like cotton candy.
Wind blows the wrong way this time.
Yeah. I'll eat it. There you go. Does it smell like cotton candy? Yes, it does. And basically, it's the same as if you go in the sugar shack and smell all that real sweetness. By putting these rocks in here, we're boiling off the water, and it actually smells pretty good.
I can't smell
But
anything.
if they made it to 30, they basically had no teeth left from eating all the grit and the sand. And I mean, right there, that, like I said, that's sugar right there on the side.
Same age.
But it's also full of sand. So one of the leading causes of death pre-Columbian was tooth decay. And well, lead. Yeah, lead poisoning. You know. But they would basically wear their enamel down and wear their teeth down to just nubs. And without dentists and that kind of stuff, infection would set in, or could set in real easy, and kill them. Now this was a whole tribal, when this happened, this was a whole tribal or community deal. And if you were old enough to walk, you were old enough to gather wood. Everybody would help.
Because if you didn't help, you didn't eat.
You didn't get any sugar. And as you know about maple syrup, you only have a very small window to get the sap. If the spring gets too warm too quick, your window is a lot shorter. Because what we need is, right now during the winter, all the sap is stored in the roots. Once the days start getting warm like this, up in the middle 40s and stuff, the sap starts running up to the branches. And then at night, it's still getting down into the 30s and lower. The sap runs back down to the roots. So you need that constant warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold to get it to flow out into the buckets or into whatever they use to catch, probably animal bladders or animals, waterproofed animal skins to catch the sap that's running up and down the trees. Couple of drawbacks to that. Like I said, if it gets too warm too quick, like if it would have stayed warm in the 60s back when it first warmed up, that sap would have went up and it would have stayed. You have maybe a day to get your sap in. This time of year, with all this rain that we've had, that's another big problem. If you don't have a closed bucket to collect that sap, you're already 99.9% water. If you fill these buckets with rainwater also, then you have another problem. You've diluted it even more, and you got to boil it a lot more if it's full of rainwater too. So, your window of opportunity to make this sap could be 1 day, it could be 2 weeks or longer. Or if the if the spring doesn't come till later, then your process goes later on into the year. They wouldn't do this around their home. These were set up far enough away from their home villages that they would not deplete the wood supply for their cooking fires at home. Because this would take to keep, 30 or 40 big fires going 24 hours a day. It takes a lot of wood, it consumes a lot of wood. So they would not do this close to where their village is, because they don't want to deplete the firewood supply around their home. But if you can kind of hear it, it is sizzling.
Stand.
So, any questions, comments, concerns? The way